Tell me a little bit about, heading into your first session, what are some of the issues of state or topics of state that you most particularly want to address?
Yeah, I think the big thing that we ran with our campaign was just making sure we're listening to constituents. So we were knocking on doors, we were attending meetings, we were having events. And the big things that I think people are concerned about is keeping as much money in their pockets as they can. So when we talk about tax reform and maybe a tax reform bill this year, that's going to be a big issue because it's going to help. Our taxpayers, and then of course, healthcare issues are a major concern, whether it's privatization of the Medicaid system in Iowa or just simply the fact that our healthcare is rising, our costs. So those are probably two of the key issues I hear most frequently. The other thing that I think is really important is, like I talked earlier today, is just those families that are at that cusp of struggle. They don't. They don't make enough to really survive, but they don't make enough for help either, and they're really struggling to make ends meet and holding more than one job. And unfortunately, in the system, sometimes the answer is, well, if you weren't married or if you weren't this, which how do you tell somebody that? They're trying to make and survive with their families, whether they're running a family farm or a small business or they're an employee of someone else. And I think that probably has to be addressed. Now, whether I'll get those things addressed this year or not as a freshman, maybe not, but it'll certainly be on the top of my list as I'm talking to other representatives and senators.
So you kind of want to approach that you brought to, or bringing to it, is, as a small business owner, I was kind of curious as far as, you talked about the two topics that are most important to constituents, being the tax plan, the tax code, simplifying that, and also healthcare. I mean, as a small business owner, do you have any sort of opinion on, what the best way would go for help people in that way, or?
Well, as far as tax reform goes, I mean, again, it's about looking at everything and any waste that we can cut out of our spending as a state and making sure that we keep those dollars in the pockets of the taxpayers. That's going to be a big priority. As far as the healthcare reform and the cost, I mean, that's going to depend on what happens nationally with, President-elect Trump and what our Senate and Congress decide to do in Washington, D.C., and how that's going to trickle down and affect us. But it's extremely important. As a small business owner, I know what that cost is, and I know how it's changed over the last 10 years of us owning our business, and it's not affordable. So the Affordable Health Care Plan is not affordable, and I think everybody is realizing that at this point. And the other problem that you have with it is when your Congress and Senate can exempt themselves from a law that they've passed on to us, that there's got to be a problem with it. But again, that's going to be something that'll come down from the national level, and then Iowa will have to look to see how we can rebuild it here in our state.